We begin in a quiet place, not on a map, but in the delicate folds of memory and imagination, where time itself seems to slow. There's a peculiar stillness here, the kind that comes when the world is just waking or slipping into sleep. In this liminal space, the mind can wander freely, unbound by the rush of daily life. And there, we encounter the echoes of civilizations that have long since vanished. These are cultures that once thrived with brilliant minds, meticulous hands, and visions that spanned both the material and the mystical. Their streets are silent now, their voices lost to the wind, yet traces of their existence linger, like faint notes of an ancient melody drifting through the corridors of time. It is easy to forget that what we call history is only a fragment, a series of glimpses, shadows, and carefully preserved artifacts that hint at vast, complex worlds once alive with knowledge. Every stone laid in precise formation, every symbol etched into clay or carved in stone, tells a story of curiosity and ingenuity. And yet, much of what these civilizations knew seems almost deliberately concealed by the passage of centuries. We are left with tantalizing puzzles. Instruments that measure the stars with uncanny accuracy, cities that align perfectly with solstices and equinoxes, and tools whose purpose we can only speculate upon. These remnants speak to a human mind capable of incredible understanding, yet one whose record is largely invisible to us. As we wander through these fragments, a contrast emerges, a delicate tension between what we know and what remains a mystery. We can touch the edges of their achievements, reconstruct the outlines of their lives, yet the full depth of their knowledge is just out of reach. Imagine the quiet of a temple, where the soft flicker of oil lamps illuminates hieroglyphs or sacred geometry that no modern hand could replicate. Picture the great libraries whose walls once hummed with the whispers of scholars, their texts now vanished or reduced to dust. It is in this tension, the known versus the unknown, that our curiosity is awakened, not in a sudden, jarring way, but as a gentle pull, an invitation to drift slowly deeper into understanding. These civilizations were not merely collections of people. They were experiments in observation, philosophy, and creation. Each innovation, from a carefully calculated aqueduct to a celestial calendar, reflects a mind attempting to understand the world and its place within it. Their sciences were deeply intertwined with daily life, spirituality, and the natural world. There was no separation between knowledge and the rhythm of existence. Mathematics was not merely abstract, but present in the steps of dancers, in the flow of water, in the layout of cities. Their laboratories were forests, rivers, and caves. Their instruments could be the human eye, a polished stone, or the shadow cast by the sun. And yet, there is an undeniable mystery to it all. We find a device made of interlocking gears, exquisitely crafted from centuries ago, and we cannot fully comprehend its purpose. We uncover astronomical alignments that map the heavens with astonishing precision, and we are left to wonder, how did they know so much? Were these inventions the result of observation, intuition, divine inspiration, or something we cannot yet name? The mind is drawn into contemplation, the imagination stirring softly, like a feather brushing against the surface of sleep. This is not a tension of frustration, but one of gentle wonder, the kind that allows the mind to wander, explore, and rest simultaneously. As we begin this journey, it is important to allow ourselves to move slowly, to feel the rhythm of discovery without the urgency of completion. Each fragment of forgotten science is like a candle in a vast, darkened hall. It illuminates a small space, inviting us to step closer and peer into the glow. We do not need to understand everything at once. In fact, some mysteries are better left as whispers, as lingering questions that hum quietly in the background of the mind. They teach patience, curiosity, and a kind of reverence for the minds that came before us. In this space between knowledge and mystery, between the tangible and the ephemeral, we find a quiet pleasure that is uniquely human. It is the recognition that while we may never know everything, we can still marvel at the ingenuity, creativity, and insight of those who lived long before us. We can feel the pulse of their curiosity echoing across time, soft and persistent, inviting us to dream, to imagine, and to listen. The sciences they practiced, the philosophies they pondered, the inventions they created, all form a hidden current beneath the surface of recorded history, waiting for those willing to move slowly enough to notice. Tonight, we begin by listening. We will not rush, nor will we demand complete understanding. Instead, we allow ourselves to drift through the echoes of these forgotten civilizations, to witness the delicate balance of light and shadow, knowledge and mystery that they have left behind. In the quiet of these thoughts, we begin to awaken a sense of wonder, a gentle recognition that even the faintest trace of human genius can illuminate the imagination and soothe the mind. Here, at the threshold of forgotten knowledge, we take our first steps into a world both ancient and eternal, a world where curiosity is the thread that connects all who have ever sought to understand. The shadows of antiquity stretch far across the landscape of human history, leaving behind cities, artifacts, and stories that whisper more questions than answers. These civilizations, though long vanished, continue to imprint themselves on the earth, like faint echoes in a silent canyon. Imagine walking through the ruins of the Indus Valley, where streets once thrummed with daily life and the hum of commerce, yet now lie empty, stones worn smooth by centuries of wind and rain. The carefully planned grids of Mohenjo-daro and Harappa suggest a sophistication that seems almost modern, yet their people disappeared without a trace, leaving behind only fragments of writing that remain undeciphered, tantalizingly close to revealing their secrets. Elsewhere, in the jungles of Central America, the Olmecs crafted colossal heads that stare silently at the sky, their purpose a mystery to modern eyes. These enormous monuments, carved from stone transported miles away from their source, speak to an understanding of engineering and labor organization that challenges conventional timelines of technological development. We can observe the details, the proportion of features, the symmetry of the carvings, the precision with which they were positioned, but the meaning behind them slips quietly into the unknown. The contrast between what we can measure and what remains forever elusive is where the imagination begins to roam, filling in the spaces with visions of lives, rituals, and wisdom lost to time. Even in Egypt, before the grandeur of the pharaohs, pre-dynastic cultures laid the foundations for monumental architecture and social organization. Early burial sites, intricate pottery, and ceremonial objects reveal a civilization with an acute awareness of symbolism, ritual, and perhaps even the cycles of nature itself. Each artifact is a doorway into a mind that sought order, understanding, and perhaps transcendence, yet we glimpse it only through fragments. The gaps between these fragments are as meaningful as the fragments themselves, inviting a kind of quiet meditation on the impermanence of human knowledge. The world they inhabited was one where the sacred and the practical were inseparably intertwined, and every innovation was both a functional tool and a reflection of their worldview. Across the Pacific, the islands of Polynesia hold another layer of mystery. The societies that navigated vast stretches of ocean without the compass, charts, or telescopes that we rely upon today demonstrated an intuitive grasp of wind, waves, stars, and currents. Their science was not written in books, but lived in the rhythm of daily life, in the careful observation of nature, and the stories passed down through generations. Modern explorers can study the routes of these voyages and reconstruct the methods, but the subtlety of their understanding, the way knowledge was encoded in songs, in knots, in ritual, remains elusive. It is a reminder that science need not always be formalized on paper to be profound. In the highlands of South America, the builders of Tiwanaku and Machu Picchu leave yet more evidence of extraordinary skill. Their stone walls fit together so precisely that even a blade cannot slip between them. Their terraces, canals, and aqueducts demonstrate an intimate knowledge of agriculture, hydrology, and microclimates, allowing cities to flourish in landscapes that seem to modernize and hospitable. The mathematical and astronomical alignment of these sites suggests a society that measured time and space with astonishing accuracy. And yet, as we examine the remnants of these cultures, we are acutely aware of what we will never know. The traditions, the daily routines, the personal thoughts of those who built, lived, and studied here. In the contrast between presence and absence, between evidence and mystery, there is a quiet allure that captures the imagination. These vanished societies challenge our assumptions about progress, reminding us that sophistication is not always linear and that brilliance can emerge in forms that the modern world struggles to recognize. Their disappearance raises questions as profound as their accomplishments. Did they fall to natural disaster, to social upheaval, or to slow erosion of knowledge over generations? Or perhaps they transformed into something unrecognizable, leaving only faint echoes of their existence behind. The answers are lost to time, but in the asking of these questions, we feel a connection to their minds, their ambitions, and their curiosity. The natural world itself often bears witness to these vanished civilizations, carrying their memory in rivers, stones, and forests. The Indus River still flows past the ruins of ancient cities, just as the jungles reclaim the Olmec heads and the Andes wind their way around terraces built centuries ago. These landscapes hold stories not written in ink, but in the careful shaping of earth and stone, in the ways humans learn to live within their environment. Observing them today, we can sense both achievement and vulnerability, the fragility of human endeavor when set against the vastness of time and the persistence of nature. And yet, within this mystery lies a subtle hope, a quiet invitation. The very incompleteness of the historical record allows us to dream, to imagine, to wander through the minds of those long gone. We do not need definitive answers to feel the wonder of their achievements. Each ruin, artifact, and alignment is like a keyhole into a world that was once vibrant with thought, study, and innovation. Listening closely, we can almost hear the rhythms of life that once filled these spaces, the clatter of tools, the murmur of marketplaces, the whispered conversations of scholars debating the workings of the stars. As we explore the shadows of these ancient civilizations, we begin to recognize a pattern. Knowledge is not always linear, nor is it always preserved in ways that survive the centuries. Some wisdom disappears entirely. Some reappears in unexpected places, carried by fragments of text, oral traditions, or subtle influences on later societies. The tension between what is known and what is lost is both a puzzle and a comfort. It reminds us of the richness of human endeavor and the continuity of curiosity across millennia. In this contemplative space, we can allow ourselves to drift slowly through the evidence and the absence, appreciating the artistry, science, and subtlety of these vanished peoples. There is no rush to understand fully, no imperative to solve the mysteries in a single sitting. Instead, we absorb the patterns, the ingenuity, and the silent messages left behind, feeling a sense of connection that transcends time. Each civilization, though forgotten in name, continues to live through the questions they provoke, the fascination they inspire, and the lingering traces of their profound understanding of the world around them. The stones of ancient civilizations speak in silence. They are not merely blocks of earth or rock. They are vessels of knowledge, carriers of intention, and echoes of human ingenuity stretching across centuries. As we wander through the remnants of lost cities, we begin to notice patterns, alignments, proportions, and precision that hint at a deep understanding of physics, geometry, and engineering. The sheer scale of some structures is astonishing. Massive stones, some weighing dozens of tons, are placed with such accuracy that even modern tools struggle to replicate the feat. The question lingers softly in the mind. How did they achieve this? And yet, instead of urgency, this question brings a gentle curiosity, an invitation to move slowly, to observe, and to imagine. In the deserts of Egypt, the pyramids rise in solemn grandeur, their angles aligned with celestial bodies, their internal chambers meticulously designed to distribute weight and endure millennia. Each limestone block tells a story of labor, skill, and planning beyond what we might assume possible for a society thousands of years old. It is easy to focus on the monumental size, yet the subtler elements, the precision of the joints, the clever use of internal corridors to manage weight, the orientation towards solstices, reveal a sophistication that merges science with symbolism. These structures are not only functional, but also poetic, speaking to a worldview where measurement, ritual, and observation coexist harmoniously. Far to the west, in Mesoamerica, the Mayan pyramids and ceremonial platforms echo a similar mastery. Unlike their Egyptian counterparts, these structures are often carved into the landscape itself, integrated with the surrounding forests and mountains. The precision of the masonry, the alignment with astronomical events, and the complex interplay between architecture and environment suggest that these builders possessed an intuitive understanding of a natural world. Terraces and plazas were not just aesthetic. They were instruments of water management, observation, and social organization. The Mayan knowledge of engineering and geometry whispers across the centuries, inviting contemplation rather than mere admiration. Even more mysterious are sites like Puma Punku in the high Andes. Here, the stones are cut with such exactitude that the joints fit together with astonishing precision, without the use of mortar. Some blocks are so massive that moving them would challenge modern machinery. The surfaces are perfectly smooth, the edges precisely angled, as if the hands that worked them were guided by knowledge we have yet to comprehend. Scholars debate how ancient engineers achieved these feats, yet the stones themselves remain silent, offering only their precise measurements as clues. The juxtaposition of our curiosity and their quiet mastery creates a tension that is neither frustrating nor urgent. It is meditative, drawing the mind into the rhythm of human ingenuity. These architectural marvels are not limited to stone alone. Across the world, from the ancient city of Petra, carved directly from sandstone cliffs, to the cliff dwellings of the ancestral Puebloans, we see evidence of advanced understanding of materials, load-bearing techniques, and environmental adaptation. In Petra, the Nabateans chiseled homes, temples, and water channels directly into the rock face, creating a harmonious blend of nature and design. Every curve, every channel for rainwater, every carved niche was intentional, demonstrating a sophisticated knowledge of engineering and a profound sensitivity to the environment. The interplay between material, purpose, and form becomes a subtle lesson in the intelligence of human observation. And yet, beyond the sheer technical prowess, there is a poetry to ancient engineering. The arrangement of stones, the alignment of temples, the symmetry of city grids, all suggest an awareness that science and aesthetics need not be separate. In Mohenjo-daro, for example, streets are laid out in a precise grid, with drainage systems that anticipate problems modern engineers still study. The urban plan demonstrates not only technical knowledge, but also an understanding of social needs, hygiene, and the human experience. It is a science that is lived, felt, and observed daily, a knowledge encoded in space itself. The contrast between what we can measure and what we can imagine is profound. We can weigh the stones, chart the alignments, and replicate calculations, yet the mindset that envisioned these projects remains elusive. How did these engineers and architects conceptualize such vast undertakings? What processes guided them? Intuition, observation, oral transmission of knowledge, perhaps even philosophies we no longer recognize. The mystery itself is part of the allure, inviting the mind to linger in quiet fascination rather than frantic explanation. Even in structures that seem purely monumental, there's an undercurrent of applied science. Consider the corbelled roofs of Mycenaean tombs, the drainage canals of the Indus Valley, or the anti-seismic techniques embedded in Japanese and Andean temples. Each element reflects trial, observation, and ingenuity. There is a rhythm to their experimentation, a dialogue with materials and environment, suggesting that their knowledge was not static but dynamic, growing from observation and refined over generations. This is a science lived and felt, not merely recorded in text, accessible only through careful, patient attention. As we drift from one ancient site to another, a pattern emerges. Across continents and epochs, civilizations arrived at solutions that resonate with modern understanding, yet arrived at them independently, often without contact. It is a quiet reminder of human potential, a testament to creativity born from necessity, curiosity, and wonder. The stones, terraces, and channels are more than remnants. They are lessons in patience, observation, and harmony. They teach us that the human mind, when guided by careful observation and purpose, can shape the world in ways both functional and beautiful. Even now, the silence of these structures speaks. A temple at dawn, bathed in soft light, seems to hum with the memory of its builder's hands. A stone path worn smooth by centuries of footsteps invites the imagination to trace the rhythm of lives long gone. The alignment of stones with sunrise or solstice is a reminder that these people observed not only the earth but the sky, and wove their understanding of both into their creations. The experience is not one of overwhelming achievement, but of gentle awe, a slow recognition of human ingenuity paired with humility before the mysteries that remain. As we conclude this meditation on stone and architecture, we begin to sense a larger truth. The sciences of these civilizations were holistic. They integrated observation, measurement, and artistry, blending what we would call engineering with philosophy, astronomy, and even spirituality. Every stone, every alignment, every canal was a deliberate act of understanding, a dialogue between human intellect and the world it sought to shape. And while many of the methods and intentions remain beyond our reach, the evidence itself offers a quiet, meditative lesson. That knowledge, beauty, and curiosity are intertwined, and that the echoes of forgotten civilizations continue to speak to those who are willing to listen slowly, patiently, and with wonder. Above the earth, the sky stretches vast and eternal, a quiet canvas that has inspired wonder for as long as human consciousness has existed. For the civilizations we now call lost, the heavens were not distant abstractions. They were intimate companions, guides, and teachers. They observed the movement of the sun, the phases of the moon, and the shifting patterns of stars with a patience that feels almost meditative. In doing so, they built a science of observation, one that blended mathematics, philosophy, and ritual into a single, flowing understanding of the cosmos. Unlike our modern telescopes and instruments, their tools were the naked eye, the shadow of a gnomon, the reflection of stars in a calm pool, or the rhythm of time encoded in the changing seasons. Consider Stonehenge, rising quietly from the plains of Wiltshire, its stones arranged in a deliberate pattern aligned to the solstices. At sunrise on the summer solstice, the sun spills its first golden rays across the monument, illuminating hidden spaces with precision that seems impossible without careful calculation. The alignment of these stones reflects not only knowledge of the solar cycle, but also a deep understanding of human experience, marking time, celebrating cycles, and connecting life on Earth with the vastness above. It is a science that is felt, not merely measured, where the observer participates in the dance of celestial movement. In the jungles of Central America, the Maya developed intricate calendars, tracking the movements of Venus, the Sun, and the Moon with astonishing precision. These were not abstract pursuits. The celestial cycles dictated agriculture, ceremonial events, and social order. Mathematics, astronomy, and ritual were entwined, forming a knowledge system that was practical, predictive, and poetic all at once. The observation of the heavens was a science lived in everyday life, where the sky guided planting, harvest, and the rhythm of human celebration. It was a conversation between Earth and cosmos, recorded not only in text but in monuments, alignments, and the very layout of cities. Even more mysterious is the knowledge implied in the structures of Machu Picchu and other Andean sites. Terraces, temples, and observatories align with the rising and setting sun at key points of the solar year. Stones marked with careful precision suggest observations of solstices, equinoxes, and perhaps the complex cycles of planets and stars. Yet the methods behind these observations remain elusive. How did these civilizations track such subtle movements without mechanical instruments? How did they transmit this knowledge over generations with consistency and accuracy? The answers are lost to time, yet the evidence evokes a quiet admiration for the ingenuity of human observation. Across the world, in Mesopotamia and Egypt, early astronomers charted the movements of stars and planets, creating proto-scientific records of celestial cycles. The Babylonians observed the moon's phases and the paths of planets, developing tables and systems that would influence future generations. Egyptian temples often aligned with particular stars or the rising sun, suggesting that their architecture itself was a form of astronomical record. These societies demonstrate that the study of the heavens was never purely theoretical. It was practical, spiritual, and social. The night sky was a laboratory, and the sky itself offered lessons in rhythm, predictability, and cosmic order. In Polynesia, navigation across vast expanses of ocean relied on detailed knowledge of the stars. The sky was a map, a compass, and a calendar all at once. By reading the positions of stars, the phases of the moon, and subtle changes in the horizon, Polynesian navigators could traverse thousands of miles of open sea with astonishing accuracy. Their understanding was not written in books or carved in stone, but lived in experience, memory, and oral tradition. The observation of the heavens became a vital science of survival, blending empirical observation with intuition and cultural memory. The contrast between modern astronomy and ancient observation is striking. Today, we rely on telescopes, satellites, and complex calculations, yet we often overlook the subtlety and depth of the knowledge developed by those who had only the sky, the earth, and time. Ancient observers learned to measure angles with simple tools, to predict eclipses with careful tracking, and to encode this information into structures that continue to inspire awe. The precision they achieved, without modern instruments, is a quiet testament to human curiosity, patience, and careful observation. There's also a poetic dimension to this science. Ancient civilizations often blended measurement with meaning, weaving stories into the stars, aligning monuments with the rhythms of nature, and linking cosmic cycles to human life. Observation was not separate from experience. It was an integrated practice that combined mathematics, spirituality, and aesthetic sensibility. The dance of the planets, the slow arc of the moon, the rising of the sun, all were threads in a tapestry that connected humanity to the cosmos. The rhythm of the heavens mirrored the rhythm of life on earth, and to observe one was to understand the other. In these ancient systems, we see the intersection of known and unknown. We can measure the alignments, calculate the angles, and reconstruct the calendars, yet the full intent, the philosophy, the ritual, the cultural significance remains elusive. The sky, like the earth, holds secrets we can only partially grasp, inviting us to contemplate, imagine, and wonder. Each discovery is both illumination and a reminder of how much remains hidden, encouraging a quiet, meditative curiosity rather than a rush to certainty. As night falls and we gaze upward, we are reminded that the same stars observed by ancient civilizations still shine above us. The moon casts a soft glow, the planets move silently through their paths, and constellations drift across the sky with the same rhythm observed by people millennia ago. In this continuity, there's both comfort and awe, a recognition that human curiosity is timeless, and that the urge to understand the cosmos is woven into the very fabric of our being. The sciences of the heavens, though partially lost, continue to speak, gently guiding us to reflect on our place in the universe and the vastness of what we have yet to discover. The study of ancient astronomy is not merely an academic exercise. It is an invitation to slow the mind, to notice patterns, and to sense the harmony between earth and sky. It teaches patience, observation, and reverence for both natural and human-made rhythms. And as we move from the celestial to the terrestrial, from observation to application, we begin to glimpse how these ancient sciences were interwoven into the broader understanding of the world, how knowledge of the stars informed architecture, agriculture, ritual, and the very way civilizations measured their place in time. The night sky becomes a quiet teacher, revealing patterns that speak to both the intellect and the imagination. In contemplating the celestial knowledge of lost civilizations, we find ourselves both grounded and expansive, connected to the earth yet drawn toward the infinite. And in this space between what is known and what is mysterious, we drift gently toward the next chapter, the study of nature itself, and the forgotten sciences encoded in the rhythms of plants, rivers, and stone. Here, the boundary between science and poetry blurs, and the journey deepens, inviting reflection, curiosity, and quiet wonder. The natural world, in its quiet rhythms and subtle patterns, was often the first laboratory of ancient civilizations. Before written texts and formalized theories, humans learned to observe, experiment, and understand by listening to the earth itself. They studied the cycles of rivers, the growth of plants, the movements of animals, and the behavior of the seasons, discovering principles that formed the foundation of what we might now call natural science. Their knowledge was not abstract. It was practical, alive, and integrated into the very fabric of daily life. Every observation, every experiment, every practice carried lessons about cause and effect, resilience and adaptation. In forests and fields, they discovered the properties of plants, both medicinal and poisonous, both nourishing and transformative. The subtle variations in leaves, flowers, and roots became a language of healing, understood through careful attention and experimentation. Remedies were developed not in laboratories, but in quiet observation, often guided by intuition as much as by systematic study. The knowledge of herbs, their combinations, and their timing reflected an empirical understanding of biology that rivaled later written pharmacopoeias. And yet, much of this wisdom was passed orally, embedded in ritual, song, and ceremony, leaving only traces for modern archaeologists to piece together. Rivers, lakes, and springs provided lessons in hydraulics, fluid dynamics, and the principles of flow long before these concepts were formally named. The Indus Valley civilization built sophisticated drainage systems and urban aqueducts, observing how water moved, eroded, and nourished the land. The design of canals, reservoirs, and stepwells demonstrates careful calculation and foresight, yet also reveals an aesthetic and practical harmony with the environment. Water was not merely a resource. It was a teacher, revealing patterns, limitations, and possibilities that shaped the lives and cities of those who learned to listen. Even the earth itself offered instruction. Ancient civilizations discovered how different soils responded to planting, how terraces could prevent erosion, and how certain minerals could alter the properties of water or metal. By working directly with the land, they acquired an intuitive knowledge of chemistry and physics. Metallurgy, for example, required experimentation with heat, pressure, and material properties, often guided by observation and trial. The secrets of smelting, alloying, and crafting metals into tools or ceremonial objects were carefully preserved, sometimes in guilds, sometimes in rituals, suggesting that knowledge was both practical and sacred. Animals, too, were teachers. Domestication, herding, and the observation of wild species informed agriculture, behavior studies, and even early medical understanding. By watching migration patterns, feeding habits, and reproductive cycles, humans gleaned insights into ecosystems, seasonal changes, and the interconnectedness of life. These early ecologists understood balance and adaptation, recognizing that the health of their crops, herds, and settlements depended on their attention to the living world around them. Observation became science, not as abstract theory, but as intimate knowledge of life's interwoven patterns. The skies and the land, the rivers and the forests were all deeply connected in the minds of ancient scholars. They saw patterns repeated across scales, the flow of water mimicking the arc of the stars, the growth of plants reflecting seasonal cycles, the behavior of animals echoing celestial rhythms. Nature itself became a living laboratory, offering data, rules, and hints of deeper laws that governed life. Their discoveries were subtle, often invisible to those untrained in observation, yet profoundly influential. Even today, traces of this wisdom persist in agricultural practices, architectural alignments, and medicinal traditions. Some of the most intriguing lessons of the natural sciences lie in their subtlety. Ancient civilizations understood resonance, vibrations, and energy in ways we are only beginning to rediscover. They recognized that sound could heal, that patterns of growth could be optimized, that certain plants could purify water or soil. These insights were often woven into spiritual or ritual frameworks, blurring the line between science and philosophy. The sacred and the practical were inseparable. Understanding one meant honoring the other. This integration of observation, experimentation, and reverence for nature created a holistic science, one in which knowledge was alive, dynamic, and deeply intertwined with the human experience. Even when written records existed, they often encoded knowledge symbolically rather than explicitly. Diagrams, inscriptions, and symbolic art carried instructions, principles, and observations, leaving the interpretation partly to the observer. This allowed knowledge to persist, yet also contributed to its gradual concealment as languages evolved and societies changed. The hidden lessons of these texts echo the broader theme of lost sciences. They invite curiosity and reflection, requiring patience, careful attention, and a willingness to engage with ambiguity. It is in this space that the mind begins to appreciate both the power and fragility of human knowledge. There is also a gentle rhythm in the natural sciences that appeals to the meditative mind. Observing a plant's growth, tracing the flow of a river, or noting the flight of birds encourages patience, focus, and a quiet sense of wonder. Ancient peoples engaged in these observations as part of daily life, yet also as deliberate inquiry. Science, for them, was not divorced from experience. It was inseparable from living. Their discoveries were embedded in story, ritual, and art, ensuring that knowledge was remembered not merely as fact, but as part of a broader understanding of life. As we contemplate the lessons embedded in nature, we begin to see a subtle interplay between the practical and the philosophical. Ancient peoples did not merely catalog what they observed. They sought meaning in it. A river's course was both a resource and a metaphor. The cycles of plants and animals informed both agriculture and ritual. Observation led to experimentation, which in turn fed philosophy, ethics, and spirituality. Their science was holistic, acknowledging both the tangible and the invisible forces that shape life. This approach offers a quiet lesson for us today. Knowledge is richest when it is lived, felt, and integrated into the broader tapestry of existence. In contemplating these ancient natural sciences, we also sense the delicate fragility of knowledge. Unlike stone structures that endure for millennia, much of this wisdom existed in practice, oral tradition, or subtle craft, making it vulnerable to the passage of time. A disruption in society, a lost teacher, or the disappearance of a language could erase centuries of accumulated insight. Yet, even in absence, nature preserves hints of these ancient sciences, the growth patterns of crops, the layout of ancient terraces, the chemical properties of plants. The earth itself becomes a teacher again, quietly guiding those who take the time to observe, to wonder, and to listen. The study of nature by these civilizations is a meditation in motion. It invites us to slow our pace, to observe without expectation, and to recognize patterns that might otherwise go unnoticed. In doing so, we begin to understand the depth of human curiosity and ingenuity, and the subtle ways in which humans can harmonize with the world around them. This knowledge, though partially lost, whispers across centuries, a reminder that the universe is generous to those willing to watch, reflect, and experiment. As our thoughts drift across rivers, forests, and stone, we begin to see that the sciences of nature were never isolated. They connect to architecture, astronomy, mathematics, and even psychology. The observations of rivers, stars, and plants informed the design of cities, the timing of rituals, and the creation of tools. Knowledge was a living, interconnected web, a subtle but powerful current that flowed through every aspect of life. And as we prepare to explore the inner sciences of the mind, we carry with us the lesson of this gentle observation, that curiosity, patience, and reverence for the world are at the heart of all understanding, whether material or metaphysical. Beyond the observable world, beyond stone, river, and sky, there lies the quiet and intricate landscape of the human mind. Ancient civilizations recognized that the most profound sciences were not only external but internal, residing within consciousness itself. They observed the rhythms of thought, the patterns of emotion, and the subtle interplay between mind and body, seeking to understand both the individual and the collective. In temples, caves, and quiet spaces, they cultivated practices that explored perception, memory, and the nature of awareness, recognizing that the mind is both a laboratory and a map, guiding human experience in ways as tangible as architecture and as elusive as dreams. Meditation, contemplation, and ritual were not merely spiritual exercises. They were methods of investigation. By sitting in stillness, observing breath and thought, ancient practitioners explored the mechanics of attention, the rise and fall of emotion, and the pathways of memory. In India, for example, early yogis developed intricate systems for understanding mental focus, energy, and the connection between the body and mind. Similarly, in China, Taoist practices emphasized harmony with natural rhythms, cultivating awareness of subtle forces both internal and external. These practices reveal a sophisticated psychology, born not of textbooks but of lived experience, refined over generations, and encoded in teachings, movement, and oral tradition. Dreams, too, were a realm of careful study. In many cultures, the subconscious was considered a source of knowledge, insight, and guidance. Ancient Egyptian and Mesopotamian records contain accounts of dream interpretation as a formal practice, where visions were analyzed for patterns, omens, and personal revelation. Dreams offered a window into mental processes that were otherwise invisible, and the ability to understand and act upon these nocturnal messages was considered a vital skill. This attention to the unconscious mind reflects an early understanding of human psychology, linking imagination, perception, and cognition in a holistic system of inner science. The study of ritual and altered states further illustrates this depth of awareness. Ceremonial practices often involve the careful modulation of sensory experience. Chanting, movement, rhythmic drumming, incense, and controlled light and shadow to induce altered states of consciousness. These were not acts of entertainment. They were deliberate experiments in perception and cognition. By observing how mind and body responded, ancient scholars gained insights into memory, attention, emotion, and even social cohesion. In a sense, these rituals functioned as laboratories for the mind, blending science, philosophy, and art into a single, immersive experience. Even social observation was part of this internal science. Leaders, shamans, and scholars studied human behavior, learning to anticipate reactions, influence decisions, and foster cooperation. The subtle psychology of group dynamics, empathy, and persuasion was often encoded in myth, story, and ritual, allowing knowledge to be transmitted across generations without formal scientific texts. These insights were deeply practical, guiding communities in maintaining harmony, resolving conflict, and nurturing growth. The interplay between the individual and the collective became a field of study in itself, merging the observation of mind with the observation of society. The contrast between modern psychology and these ancient practices is striking. Today, we rely on instruments, surveys, and formal theories, often separating cognition from culture, biology from spirit. In contrast, ancient thinkers integrated observation, experience, and philosophy, understanding that the mind cannot be studied in isolation from the world it inhabits. Thoughts, emotions, and consciousness were seen as extensions of natural rhythms, celestial cycles, and social patterns. Knowledge was both empirical and intuitive, measured and felt, logical and poetic. It was a science that embraced ambiguity, recognizing that some truths could only be approached indirectly, through experience, reflection, and careful attention. Symbols, stories, and myths also functioned as tools of inner science. Archetypal narratives, repeated across cultures, encoded lessons about human behavior, morality, and mental states. They served as mirrors, allowing listeners to recognize patterns in their own minds, to reflect on choices, and to cultivate awareness. These symbolic frameworks were educational, therapeutic, and experimental, offering insight into cognition long before the concept of psychology existed. The stories themselves became instruments of self-observation, shaping thought and emotion as subtly as any structured practice. Healing, in many ancient societies, was intimately tied to this understanding of the mind. Practices that combined herbal remedies, physical treatment, and mental or spiritual exercises reflected a holistic approach to health. The recognition that mind and body influence one another, that emotion and thought can alter physical states, is a principle modern science is only fully embracing today. Ancient healers integrated observation, intuition, and experience to create systems that treated the whole person, acknowledging both the visible and invisible dimensions of life. The science of the mind was also connected to memory and knowledge transmission. Techniques for memorization, recitation, and oral preservation reveal an understanding of cognitive processes. Vedic scholars in India, for instance, developed highly precise methods for retaining vast quantities of text, not through writing alone, but through structured rhythm, sound, and repetition. This mastery of memory demonstrates a sophisticated grasp of mental architecture, rhythm, and neural patterning, achieved long before the advent of modern neuroscience. As we contemplate these inner sciences, we sense the delicate balance between observation and mystery. We can study the techniques, reconstruct rituals, and analyze texts, but the full experiential depth, the internal awareness of those who practice them, remains largely beyond reach. This gap is not a limitation, but a source of wonder. It invites us to slow, to reflect, and to consider our own inner landscapes. In exploring the minds of ancient thinkers, we are reminded that science is not solely external. It is an inward journey, a practice of attention, and a cultivation of awareness. In these quiet explorations, there is a rhythm akin to meditation, a gentle pace that encourages calm and curiosity. The study of consciousness, attention, and emotion becomes a bedtime journey, allowing the mind to wander without urgency. Ancient civilizations understood that knowledge of the self was as profound and necessary as knowledge of the stars, stones, or rivers. The inner sciences provide a bridge, connecting observation, intuition, and lived experience into a subtle, holistic understanding of life. And so, we drift through this landscape, moving gently from the sciences of the external world to the mysteries within. The mind, like a river, has currents that guide, eddies that reflect, and depths that remain unexplored. Ancient thinkers recognized this complexity, and in their quiet, deliberate explorations, they mapped territories we are only beginning to appreciate. The interplay of meditation, ritual, observation, and storytelling created a science of consciousness that resonates with the deepest parts of human experience. As we prepare to move from the inner mind to the outer world of invention and technology, we carry forward the lesson of patience, observation, and subtlety. The mind itself is a laboratory, and its processes, though largely invisible, are as structured, precise, and profound as any physical science. Ancient civilizations remind us that understanding begins not with haste, but with attentive curiosity, and that some of the most profound knowledge lies not in what can be held or measured, but in what can be felt, imagined, and quietly observed. The realm of ancient technology is a place where human imagination and skill converge in quiet, often hidden brilliance. In the ruins of lost civilizations, we encounter tools, mechanisms, and inventions that reveal minds capable of innovation far beyond what we might expect for their time. Some of these devices were simple yet ingenious, while others remain enigmatic, challenging modern understanding and inviting the mind to wander through possibilities. They were not merely functional objects. They were embodiments of observation, experimentation, and a deep engagement with the physical world. Each creation tells a story of human curiosity, patience, and a desire to bend nature's laws to purpose without breaking them. Consider the Antikythera mechanism, discovered on a shipwreck off the coast of Greece. This complex arrangement of interlocking gears, dating back over 2,000 years, could predict the movements of the sun, moon, and planets with astonishing accuracy. Its sophistication suggests a level of understanding of astronomy, mathematics, and engineering that rivals technologies thought to have emerged much later. Scholars remain fascinated by its design, structure, and intended function, and even today, modern reconstructions cannot fully capture the elegance of its original craftsmanship. The Antikythera mechanism serves as a quiet reminder that innovation is not bound by era. Brilliance can emerge wherever curiosity and observation meet. Across continents and centuries, similar mysteries appear. In the deserts of Egypt, artifacts such as precise measuring tools, complex water-lifting devices, and intricate architectural instruments hint at an understanding of engineering that extended far beyond simple construction. The design of levers, pulleys, and ramps demonstrates an intuitive grasp of physics and material strength. Ancient craftsmen and engineers experimented not with formulas on paper, but with hands-on observation, trial, and refinement, discovering solutions that remain both elegant and effective. Their technology was lived, tangible, and intimately tied to the needs of daily life and monumental achievement alike. The knowledge of metallurgy is another striking example. Civilizations such as the Hittites and the Egyptians mastered smelting and alloying techniques, creating tools, weapons, and ceremonial objects with precision that would challenge even modern craftsmen. They understood the behavior of metals under heat and pressure, recognizing how to manipulate composition to achieve hardness, flexibility, or resilience. The creation of bronze, iron, and early steel required careful observation, experimentation, and patience, blending the scientific with the artisanal. These processes were often guarded, passed down through apprenticeship or ritual, ensuring that knowledge remained alive and practiced rather than written merely as instruction. In the Americas, civilizations such as the Incas and Maya demonstrated technological prowess in both construction and mechanics. The precision-cut stones of Incan walls, fitted perfectly without mortar, reveal not just skill, but an understanding of leverage, weight distribution, and structural integrity. Their terraces, bridges, and aqueducts showcase applied engineering in harmony with nature. The Maya, meanwhile, developed complex calendars and counting systems, enabling them to predict celestial cycles, organize agriculture, and plan monumental construction projects. Their tools, though often simple by modern standards, were extensions of careful observation and profound understanding of the world's rhythms. Even more mysterious are devices whose purpose is still debated. Stone carvings, bronze implements, and wooden constructions hint at mechanisms for measurement, timing, or calculation that we can only speculate about. These objects challenge assumptions about the linear progression of technology and invite us to consider that human ingenuity has always found expression in both visible and hidden forms. The enigma itself is part of the fascination. It allows the mind to wander through possibilities, imagining the hands and intellect that brought these inventions into being. In examining these technologies, a pattern emerges. Many ancient inventions were deeply integrated with the natural and social world. Water management systems, for example, were not simply about moving liquid from one place to another. They were part of broader ecological understanding, reflecting knowledge of soil, climate, and human needs. Levers, pulleys, and gears were often part of religious or ceremonial spaces, suggesting that technology and spirituality were not separate, but intertwined. In these societies, the practical and the sacred, the observed and the imagined, coexisted seamlessly. The contrast between ancient and modern technology is striking, yet instructive. Modern inventions often emerge from formal education, abstract calculation, and mass production. Ancient innovations, in contrast, were cultivated through direct engagement with the material world, observation, and reflection. Their technologies reflect patience, iterative refinement, and a subtle respect for natural forces. To study them is to witness a different rhythm of ingenuity, slow, deliberate, and deeply connected to both necessity and imagination. So the most intriguing aspects of ancient technology lie in the details. The precise drilling of holes in stones, the construction of devices with perfectly aligned gears, the crafting of tools from rare or difficult materials, all reveal a meticulous attention to process and outcome. These civilizations observe cause and effect with extraordinary sensitivity, translating abstract principles into concrete, functional objects. Each invention becomes a bridge between mind and matter, a testament to the power of observation, reflection, and experimentation. There is also a profound subtlety in how technology was used. In many cases, inventions were designed to harmonize with natural cycles, human effort, and the power of symbols is subtle yet profound. Across ancient civilizations, from the deserts of Egypt to the forests of Mesoamerica, symbols were more than decoration. They were vessels of meaning, encoded knowledge, and keys to understanding both the natural world and the human mind. A circle, a spiral, a cross, or a triangle could represent time, the elements, the cosmos, or the cycles of life itself. Symbols acted as bridges between observation and comprehension, carrying layers of information that were accessible only to those attuned to their significance. They were, in essence, early tools of information science, capable of communicating complex ideas without a single word. In temples, pyramids, and sacred spaces, symbols were etched, carved, and painted with deliberate intent. The walls of Egyptian tombs, for example, are covered in hieroglyphs that record religious practice, astronomical observation, and aspects of daily life. Yet each figure is carefully designed to resonate on multiple levels: practical, spiritual, and poetic. Similarly, the Mayan glyphs combine representation with abstraction, creating a system of knowledge that is both precise and evocative. In every line, curve, and pattern, there is an interplay between the observable world and the imagined one, a subtle merging of fact and philosophy, reality and reflection. Even in abstract geometric designs, there is encoded wisdom. Spirals often indicate cycles of time, growth, or energy. Circles symbolize unity and continuity. Triangles can reflect stability, aspiration, or the connection between earth, sky, and spirit. In sacred architecture, these shapes are not merely ornamental. They guide movement, focus attention, and align human perception with natural or cosmic patterns. Walking through such spaces, one cannot help but feel a rhythm, a subtle order that resonates with the body and mind, creating a sense of harmony and contemplation. These patterns are, in essence, a form of silent teaching, offering knowledge through perception, intuition, and reflection. Symbols also served as mnemonic devices, allowing knowledge to be preserved across generations. Before widespread writing, visual cues were essential for remembering complex ideas, astronomical cycles, agricultural schedules, social codes, and spiritual practices. Carved stones, painted pottery, and woven textiles could encode practical instructions as well as philosophical concepts, ensuring that wisdom survived even in the absence of formal records. By engaging with symbols, the mind is invited to interpret, imagine, and participate, creating a dialogue between the observer and the knowledge embedded in the object. The power of symbols lies not only in communication, but also in transformation. Many ancient civilizations believed that symbols could channel energy, focus thought, and alter perception. Mandalas, for example, are intricate geometric designs used in meditation, guiding attention and facilitating introspection. Sacred diagrams in India, Tibet, and beyond functioned as tools for self-understanding, teaching the observer about harmony, proportion, and the inner order of the mind and universe. These symbols are simultaneously external and internal, reflecting the microcosm of the human psyche and the macrocosm of the cosmos. In Mesoamerican cultures, symbolic motifs appear in calendars, sculptures, and ceremonial spaces, encoding cycles of time, celestial observation, and human behavior. These symbols were not merely decorative. They structured knowledge, guiding action and understanding. A careful observer could read the cycles of the sun, moon, and planets through glyphs. They could anticipate agricultural needs, ritual timing, and social events. Symbols became a medium for practical science, philosophy, and art simultaneously, demonstrating the multidimensional approach of ancient thinkers. Even the simplest marks can carry profound significance. A dot, a line, or a cross may encode relationships, movement, or energy. In the Inca quipus, knots and cords communicated numerical information, census data, and historical records in a system that was tactile, visual, and abstract at once. Each knot, position, and color was intentional, a precise encoding of complex data that could be read and interpreted. The quipu exemplifies the intelligence embedded in symbolic systems, showing that information need not be written on paper to be exact, preserved, and meaningful. The interplay of known and unknown is central to understanding the power of symbols. While we can identify shapes and patterns, reconstruct systems, and decode parts of the messages, the full intent, the cultural resonance, spiritual meaning, and experiential dimension is often lost. And yet, it is precisely this gap that draws us deeper, inviting reflection, curiosity, and quiet imagination. Symbols whisper rather than shout. They suggest rather than command, leaving space for the mind to wander, interpret, and connect. In their subtlety lies their enduring power. In sacred spaces, symbols often interact with light, shadow, sound, and movement to create immersive experiences. A carved spiral may catch the sun at a certain angle. A painted glyph may align with a doorway, or a pattern in the floor may guide a ritual procession. These are not random designs. They are carefully constructed systems in which perception, experience, and knowledge converge. The observer participates in a living dialogue with the symbol, engaging the senses, the mind, and the imagination. Through this engagement, the encoded wisdom comes alive, guiding understanding, reflection, and even spiritual insight. Symbols are also timeless. Geometric forms, cosmic motifs, and archetypal images reappear across continents and centuries, suggesting a shared intuition or understanding among human cultures. Spirals in Europe, concentric circles in Africa, mandalas in Asia, and sun motifs in the Americas all reflect similar engagement with natural cycles, cosmic order, and the patterns of human perception. This universality hints at a hidden thread, a common human impulse to encode knowledge visually, poetically, and intuitively. By observing these parallels, we glimpse not only the ingenuity of individual cultures, but also the shared consciousness that spans humanity. Even in modern life, the influence of ancient symbolic systems persists. Architecture, art, mathematics, and even digital interfaces draw upon forms and structures first explored in ancient civilizations. Their elegance lies in simplicity, clarity, and resonance, qualities that continue to inform design, understanding, and aesthetics today. By studying these symbols, we reconnect with a deep, meditative approach to knowledge, one that emphasizes observation, reflection, and subtlety rather than immediacy or force. Symbols invite us to slow down, to see beyond surface appearance, and to engage with meaning on multiple levels. In contemplating these ancient visual languages, we find ourselves attuned to both the practical and the mysterious, the visible and the invisible. Each spiral, circle, or glyph is a gateway, an invitation to observe patterns, reflect on cycles, and connect with knowledge that transcends time. They remind us that wisdom can be encoded in form, pattern, and perception, and that some of the most profound insights are communicated quietly, waiting for the attentive observer to perceive. As night deepens and the mind drifts between wakefulness and sleep, symbols offer a gentle guide. They bridge past and present, seen and unseen, known and unknown. They teach that knowledge is not always spoken or written, but often suggested, hinted, and experienced. And in this quiet transmission of meaning, we discover a subtle truth, that human understanding is as much about intuition, imagination, and perception as it is about measurement, calculation, and description. Symbols are the whisper of lost civilizations, softly urging us to notice, reflect, and imagine. Rituals have always been the heartbeat of human civilizations, subtle yet profound expressions of culture, knowledge, and understanding. They bridge the visible and invisible, connecting communities to the cycles of nature, the cosmos, and the inner workings of the mind. In ancient societies, rituals were not mere performance or superstition. They were carefully observed practices, meticulously designed to harmonize the human spirit with the natural and spiritual worlds. Each action, gesture, chant, and offering carried layers of meaning, encoding lessons about ethics, behavior, cosmology, and even natural science. These were the hidden sciences, subtle frameworks through which civilizations sought to understand, influence, and harmonize with the universe around them. In the temples of Egypt, rituals synchronized with celestial events, aligning daily worship, offerings, and ceremonies with the rising and setting of stars. Priests moved through sacred spaces with precision, performing gestures and chants designed to reflect cosmic order on Earth. The structure of these rituals encoded knowledge of time, astronomy, and environmental cycles, ensuring that communities remained aligned with seasonal rhythms and celestial patterns. In this way, ritual was both spiritual and scientific, guiding human activity while fostering connection with the cosmos. Every movement was intentional, every repetition purposeful, and every sound a tool for focus and awareness. Across the Americas, the Maya developed complex ceremonial calendars that dictated not only religious observances, but also agricultural cycles, astronomical tracking, and social organization. Rituals were performed at specific times to honor deities, mark astronomical events, or ensure fertility and abundance. In observing these ceremonies, one notices an astonishing integration of knowledge. Mathematics, astronomy, agriculture, and psychology all intertwined. The timing of rituals was not arbitrary. It reflected empirical observation, careful calculation, and a deep understanding of the world's natural and spiritual rhythms. Through ritual, knowledge was enacted, experienced, and transmitted. Even in smaller, seemingly simple rituals, profound understanding can be detected. In indigenous societies, offerings of plants, stones, or food were often designed to cultivate attention, gratitude, and mindfulness. These acts trained perception and observation, aligning participants with ecological and social rhythms. The symbolism of materials, the sequence of gestures, and the spoken words carried knowledge that was encoded in experience rather than text. Ritual became a method for cultivating awareness, shaping behavior, and preserving wisdom across generations, blending what we might call ethics, psychology, and environmental science into a single practice. The use of sound and vibration in rituals offers another layer of hidden science. Drums, chants, gongs, and flutes were not merely musical. They were carefully chosen tools for altering consciousness, fostering community cohesion, and guiding attention. The repetitive rhythm of a drum or the tonal resonance of a chant could induce meditative states, sharpen focus, and even affect physiological responses. Across cultures, these practices demonstrate a subtle knowledge of the mind-body connection, a practical psychology embedded within spiritual practice. Ancient peoples understood that sound could influence perception, mood, and thought, creating a bridge between material reality and the inner world of consciousness. Ceremonial architecture itself often served as a silent participant in ritual. Temples, pyramids, and sacred sites were designed to guide movement, focus attention, and enhance sensory experience. Light, shadow, acoustics, and geometry all played roles in shaping perception, transforming ordinary spaces into vessels of knowledge. The entrance of a temple might frame the rising sun at solstice, while inner chambers amplify sound, or corridors lead participants along symbolic paths. Ritual and architecture work together as a holistic system of knowledge, blending observation, design, and spiritual practice into a unified experience that was at once practical, symbolic, and meditative. In many ancient cultures, ritual also served as a means of social organization and governance. Ceremonies structured collective life, reinforcing hierarchy, shared values, and cooperation. Observing or participating in rituals taught lessons about responsibility, morality, and the interdependence of individuals within a community. This integration of ethics, social psychology, and practice ensured that knowledge was transmitted both intellectually and experientially, creating a stable framework for cultural continuity. The lessons encoded in ritual were subtle, yet profound, shaping behavior, cultivating mindfulness, and fostering a sense of belonging. Rituals also functioned as repositories of hidden scientific knowledge. In Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the Americas, ceremonial practices encoded agricultural calendars, medicinal knowledge, and astronomical observation. In many cases, ritual was the method by which knowledge could be shared without written record, using symbols, timing, and action to preserve complex understanding. In this way, ritual acted as both an educational and a technological tool, a method for maintaining knowledge across generations, embedded in movement, sound, and sequence rather than paper or stone. The spiritual dimension of ritual further deepened its subtlety. Ancient civilizations recognized that the mind, body, and spirit are interconnected, and that aligning these elements could enhance perception, decision-making, and creativity. Ceremonial practices, whether through meditation, fasting, chanting, or dance, were methods of training attention, cultivating insight, and exploring consciousness. These practices represent early explorations of what we now call psychology, neuroscience, and therapy, demonstrating that understanding human perception and behavior was inseparable from spiritual practice. Even the smallest elements of ritual could encode profound lessons. The selection of colors, the orientation of objects, the sequence of gestures, all were deliberate. Each choice carried meaning, designed to influence perception, facilitate memory, and guide thought. This precision reflects a holistic approach to knowledge, where the spiritual, psychological, and natural sciences are intertwined. By participating in or observing rituals, individuals absorbed lessons about timing, focus, interaction with nature, and the patterns of the cosmos. Knowledge was not read, it was lived. The subtlety of these practices is why so much remains hidden to modern observers. Without understanding the cultural, philosophical, and symbolic context, rituals can appear mysterious, even whimsical. Yet when approached with patience, attention, and reflection, their sophistication becomes apparent. Rituals were practical, poetic, and profoundly intelligent systems, integrating science, art, ethics, and spirituality into an immersive experience. They teach us that knowledge need not always be explicit to be effective, and that learning can be embodied, participatory, and experiential. Language is one of the most profound inventions of humanity, a bridge between thought and expression, between the inner world and the shared reality of community. Yet among the lost civilizations of history, many languages and scripts have vanished, leaving only traces etched in stone, carved into clay, or whispered through fragments of oral tradition. These remnants carry with them the weight of centuries, hints of knowledge, and glimpses of thought patterns that once guided entire societies. In contemplating these lost languages, we encounter both the known and the unknown, the deciphered and the enigmatic, and are drawn into a quiet reflection on the impermanence and resilience of human communication. Hieroglyphs, cuneiform, and other ancient scripts are more than records of trade, law, or ritual. They are windows into the worldview of those who created them. Each symbol or character is carefully constructed, often encoding layers of meaning beyond the literal. A single glyph may simultaneously represent a sound, an idea, a concept, or a connection to the divine. The precision and subtlety required to convey such complexity reveal a sophisticated understanding of abstraction and representation, and a deep awareness of how symbols interact with cognition. Writing was not merely practical. It was a tool for shaping thought, memory, and perception. In the ruins of Mesopotamia, clay tablets record astronomical observations, agricultural schedules, and mathematical calculations, demonstrating that written language was often intertwined with scientific knowledge. Each mark, stroke, and arrangement reflects both technical skill and careful observation, preserving insights that might otherwise have been lost to time. Similarly, the Mayan glyphs offer a multidimensional record, combining history, ritual, cosmology, and mathematics in a single system. To read these scripts is to engage with the rhythm of ancient thought, tracing patterns of logic, metaphor, and meaning that shaped entire civilizations. Yet the challenge of lost languages is precisely what makes them so captivating. Many scripts remain undeciphered, their full intent obscured by centuries of silence. The Indus script, for instance, survives only in fragments, etched on seals, pottery, and tablets, hinting at complex social, economic, and spiritual systems that we cannot yet fully comprehend. In their incompleteness, these languages inspire wonder, inviting us to imagine the thoughts, stories, and knowledge they once conveyed. The gaps between the symbols and our understanding are spaces for curiosity, reflection, and quiet contemplation. Even when partial understanding is possible, context remains essential. Symbols and scripts were embedded within a culture connected to ritual, art, architecture, and daily life. Without grasping these relationships, interpretation can remain superficial. Writing was never a mere transcription of speech. It was an encoding of worldview, intention, and cultural philosophy. Each line carved in stone or pressed into clay represents a carefully considered choice, an intersection of communication, memory, and meaning. In studying these scripts, we engage not only with the language itself, but also with the civilization that gave it life, tracing the contours of thought across time. Beyond formal scripts, many civilizations developed codes, pictograms, and symbolic systems to communicate hidden knowledge. These systems served multiple purposes. They preserved sacred information, encoded astronomical or agricultural cycles, and ensured that important knowledge could survive even in secrecy. For example, knots, beads, and cords in the Andean quipus transmitted census data, historical records, and accounting information in a form that was tactile, visual, and abstract simultaneously. Such codes demonstrate the ingenuity of human cognition, revealing methods of recording, recalling, and transmitting complex information that transcend conventional writing. Language, in all its forms, was also intimately connected with ritual, memory, and social cohesion. In oral traditions, songs, chants, and recitations preserved law, history, and philosophy, ensuring the continuity of knowledge without a single written character. Mnemonic devices, repetition, and rhythm were tools for both memory and comprehension, guiding the mind through vast stores of information. These practices highlight a profound understanding of the mind, memory, and the subtleties of human cognition, an early form of cognitive science embedded in culture and daily life. Even the loss of language carries lessons. The disappearance of a script or dialect reminds us that knowledge is fragile, dependent not only on invention, but also on transmission. Societal collapse, migration, or cultural shifts can erase centuries of accumulated insight, leaving only fragments to echo across time. Yet even in fragments, there is a beauty, a whisper of intellect, a shadow of thought, and a call to imagine the world as it once was. In these remnants, the mind is invited to reconstruct, reflect, and enter into a dialogue with the past. The interplay between deciphered and undeciphered symbols mirrors the broader tension between known and unknown in the study of lost sciences. Some messages are clear, others remain tantalizingly opaque. Together, they create a landscape of curiosity and contemplation, where knowledge is neither fully present nor entirely absent, and where the act of seeking understanding becomes itself a meditation. To engage with lost languages is to step into a rhythm of thought that transcends time, aligning the observer with both the intellect and imagination of ancient peoples. Language was also a tool for encoding ethics, philosophy, and spiritual insight. Sacred texts, ritual instructions, and philosophical writings demonstrate a sophisticated understanding of human nature, society, and the universe. Each word, symbol, or structure was chosen with intention, reflecting an awareness of the power of communication to shape perception, memory, and behavior. In this sense, language was a form of applied science, a method of preserving and transmitting complex systems of thought in ways that could endure across generations. In reflecting on lost languages and codes, we are reminded of the fragility and resilience of human knowledge. Writing, symbols, and codes preserve the past, yet they also challenge us, asking for patience, careful observation, and imaginative engagement. They teach that understanding is not merely about accumulation of facts, but about attuning to patterns, context, and the subtle interplay between expression and meaning. In doing so, they connect us to the minds of those who came before, offering glimpses into thought processes, philosophies, and discoveries that shape civilizations. As night deepens and attention softens, these lost languages offer a gentle meditation. They invite us to consider the impermanence of knowledge, the creativity required to communicate across time, and the enduring curiosity of the human mind. In their quiet echoes, we find a connection to civilizations long vanished, a reminder that thought, observation, and expression are threads that weave through history. The mysteries encoded in symbols, scripts, and codes are not barriers but invitations, encouraging reflection, imagination, and a patient engagement with the rhythms of human understanding. And as we allow these thoughts to drift softly in the mind, we begin to sense the broader patterns connecting language to architecture, ritual, astronomy, and inner sciences. All these forms of knowledge, external and internal, spoken and symbolic, were intertwined, forming holistic systems that guided the lives of civilizations. Lost languages, with their beauty, precision, and mystery, remind us that human intelligence has always been inventive, integrative, and deeply reflective. They are whispers of understanding, quietly urging us to notice, contemplate, and imagine worlds that once were, and perhaps still are, waiting to be rediscovered. Mathematics is often described as the universal language, an abstract system of rules and relationships. Yet for ancient civilizations, it was far more than abstraction. It was a living, breathing tool, a bridge between observation, art, nature, and technology. Numbers, proportions, and geometric patterns were discovered in the rise of the sun, the flow of rivers, the growth of plants, and the construction of cities. The ancients saw mathematics not as a distant theory, but as an intimate companion, a lens through which the patterns of the world could be understood, measured, and harmonized. Every calculation, every alignment, every measured distance reflected both practicality and philosophy, connecting the tangible with the metaphysical. In the temples of Egypt, mathematics guided the construction of monuments, ensuring that each stone, each angle, and each proportion resonated with harmony. The Great Pyramid of Giza, for example, is not only an architectural marvel, but also a precise mathematical achievement. Its dimensions encode relationships between angles, proportions, and celestial cycles, reflecting knowledge of geometry, arithmetic, and observational astronomy. Ancient builders understood ratios, symmetry, and balance in ways that continue to awe modern engineers. Mathematics was a bridge between earth and sky, a tool for creating structures that honored both function and cosmic rhythm. Across the Aegean and Mediterranean, the Greeks developed mathematics as both a practical and philosophical pursuit. Pythagoras and his followers saw numbers as the essence of reality, exploring harmony, proportion, and numerical relationships in music, architecture, and the cosmos. Mathematics was a key to understanding the universe itself, revealing hidden patterns that connected human perception, natural phenomena, and celestial motion. The study of ratios, harmonics, and geometry was both analytical and poetic, a reflection of the belief that the world itself was ordered according to mathematical principles. Even in less famous civilizations, mathematics played a vital role in daily life. The Indus Valley planners employed precise units of measurement for construction, urban planning, and trade, demonstrating a sophisticated understanding of standardization and proportion. Observing the alignment of streets, the dimensions of bricks, and the design of drainage systems, one can see a deliberate application of mathematical reasoning to create functional, efficient, and harmonious cities. Mathematics was not isolated in textbooks or abstract thought. It was alive, tangible, and woven into the very fabric of life. Geometry, in particular, was a language of both measurement and meaning. Shapes, angles, and proportions were used to encode knowledge, symbolize ideas, and organize space. Triangles, circles, and squares were not merely visual elements. They represented stability, continuity, and the cycles of nature. Sacred spaces, temples, and monuments employed geometric principles to guide perception, create harmony, and align with cosmic events. Mathematics, in this sense, was inseparable from aesthetics, spirituality, and practical functionality. Every design was both a calculation and an expression, a convergence of utility, beauty, and philosophy. The study of patterns extended beyond stone and brick to textiles, pottery, and art. Repeating motifs, spirals, and grids reflect an understanding of symmetry, repetition, and ratio, demonstrating an intuitive grasp of what we now call mathematical structures. These patterns often encoded information, cultural stories, or cosmic principles, revealing that mathematics was not confined to numbers alone. It was a framework for understanding relationships, cycles, and order in the universe. Through repetition, proportion, and alignment, the ancients found ways to make the invisible visible, translating abstract principles into tangible, comprehensible forms. Numbers themselves carried symbolic and practical significance. Many ancient cultures assigned meaning to certain quantities, recognizing their role in cycles of time, ritual, and natural phenomena. Calendars, for instance, required precise counting of days, months, and years to predict celestial events, guide agriculture, and structure ceremonies. Mathematics enabled the tracking of eclipses, solstices, and planetary alignments, offering a bridge between observation and prediction, the known and the mysterious. In these practices, numbers were more than tools. They were keys to understanding the rhythms of life itself. The application of mathematics in engineering and mechanics was equally sophisticated. Water management, metallurgy, and construction all relied on precise measurement, calculation, and an understanding of forces and proportions. Aqueducts, canals, bridges, and temples were not constructed haphazardly. They were designed according to careful observation, calculation, and experimentation. Ancient engineers combined empirical knowledge with mathematical principles, creating systems that were efficient, durable, and often imbued with symbolic meaning. Mathematics became a practical guide for shaping the environment, a language through which humans harmonized their creations with nature. Trade and commerce, too, depended on mathematical understanding. Systems of weights, measures, and currencies required standardized calculations, accounting, and proportional reasoning. Merchants and administrators developed sophisticated methods to manage inventories, predict yields, and assess value, ensuring the stability and growth of complex economies. Even the act of recording transactions demanded numerical literacy, demonstrating that mathematics permeated both elite and everyday life, science and society, practical necessity and intellectual pursuit. The interplay between known and unknown, fact and mystery, is a recurring theme in ancient mathematics. Some calculations and proportions can be precisely reconstructed today, while others remain enigmatic, their methods lost to time. Why certain numbers, ratios, or geometries were chosen often reflects cultural, spiritual, or symbolic reasoning as much as practical necessity. In this ambiguity lies a quiet fascination, inviting reflection, imagination, and contemplation. Mathematics becomes a meditation, a journey into both logic and beauty, precision and poetry. As night falls, contemplating the mathematics of the ancients offers a sense of continuity and wonder. We recognize in their measurements, ratios, and patterns a timeless curiosity, a desire to understand, organize, and harmonize with the world. Their discoveries were not isolated. They were part of an integrated system of knowledge that connected astronomy, architecture, inner sciences, natural observation, and ritual. Numbers were more than abstract symbols. They were living tools, guiding action, shaping perception, and encoding wisdom for future generations. In the quiet reflection of the mind, the patterns of mathematics reveal themselves as gentle guides. They remind us that order can emerge from observation, that symmetry can convey meaning, and that precision can coexist with beauty. Ancient civilizations offer a model of engagement with the world that is both analytical and meditative, where numbers are not merely counted, but felt, experienced, and appreciated. Through their mathematical achievements, we glimpse a worldview in which knowledge is a tapestry, interwoven, interconnected, and ever-resonant. The study of ancient mathematics, then, is not merely an academic pursuit. It is a contemplative journey. Each ratio, angle, and calculation invites the mind to slow, to observe, and to reflect. By tracing the patterns left by the ancients, we connect with their curiosity, patience, and insight, gaining both practical understanding and a quiet sense of wonder. Mathematics becomes a language of the soul, a tool for perceiving order, and a guide to harmonizing with the rhythms of the universe. And as our thoughts drift, carried gently on the currents of contemplation, we begin to sense the broader tapestry. Mathematics connects stone to sky, ritual to architecture, observation to imagination. It is a subtle, invisible thread linking all the sciences of ancient civilizations, weaving together knowledge, intuition, and philosophy. In the silent elegance of numbers, we find both certainty and mystery, logic and poetry, a reflection of the minds that sought to understand the world and our place within it. Architecture has always been far more than the simple arrangement of stone, wood, or clay. For ancient civilizations, building was an act of understanding of the land, the cosmos, and the human spirit. Each structure, from monumental pyramids to modest dwellings, reflected observation, ingenuity, and harmony with both natural and spiritual principles. Architects were not merely craftsmen. They were scholars of geometry, astronomy, hydraulics, and human psychology. Every column, alignment, and proportion carried knowledge, sometimes practical, sometimes symbolic, often both. Monuments like the pyramids of Egypt capture this duality. Precise mathematics and celestial alignment combined with spiritual meaning. Their stones, corridors, and chambers speak of labor, skill, and philosophical insight, forming bridges between Earth and cosmos. Across the Americas, the Maya and Aztec crafted temples and observatories aligned with solstices and planetary cycles, integrating engineering with ritual, music, and ceremonial movement. Urban planning in Mohenjo-Daro and other Indus Valley cities demonstrates advanced grids, drainage systems, and harmonious layouts, showing that functionality and intuition could coexist seamlessly. Stone circles, terraces, aqueducts, and irrigation systems reveal a deep understanding of environmental rhythms, water, and material properties. Sacred architecture encoded mathematics, astronomy, ethics, and art, with light, shadow, and resonance shaping both perception and ritual experience. Builders engaged in empirical experimentation with materials, acoustics, and labor, blending practicality with aesthetic and spiritual insight. Even smaller structures, like bridges and channels, reflect the same integration of observation, precision, and respect for nature. In every stone, terrace, and passage, the intelligence of these civilizations endures, inviting reflection on patience, harmony, and the unity of knowledge. Architecture becomes not only a record of skill, but a meditation on thought itself, a subtle, enduring dialogue between human intention, the environment, and the cosmos. From the earliest moments of human observation, the night sky has drawn attention, wonder, and contemplation. The stars, planets, and celestial cycles were not merely distant points of light. They were markers of time, guides for navigation, and mirrors reflecting the rhythms of life on Earth. Ancient civilizations developed intricate systems to study the heavens, blending observation, mathematics, ritual, and art into what we now call astronomy. These celestial sciences were not confined to the abstract. They were practical, spiritual, and profoundly integrated with the cycles of agriculture, religion, and social organization. In gazing upward, humans sought patterns, connections, and meaning, a pursuit that was both scientific and poetic. In Mesopotamia, scholars meticulously recorded the motion of stars, planets, and the moon, creating calendars, predicting eclipses, and timing agricultural and ceremonial events. They observed not only the visible phenomena, but also the patterns behind them, discerning cycles that recurred over decades and generations. These observations were recorded on clay tablets, forming the basis for a sophisticated understanding of time, motion, and celestial relationships. Their work reveals that astronomy was not only a science of measurement, but also a tool for organizing human life, guiding both ritual and practical activity. Similarly, in Egypt, the rising of particular stars dictated the timing of the Nile's flooding, essential for planting crops and sustaining communities. Temples and monuments were often aligned with celestial events, marking solstices, equinoxes, and the rising or setting of sacred stars. The precision of these alignments required careful measurement, long-term observation, and an understanding of geometry and mathematics. Celestial knowledge was integrated into daily life, architecture, and ritual, creating a worldview in which the movements of the heavens were deeply intertwined with earthly existence. The Maya took celestial observation to extraordinary heights, constructing observatories, pyramids, and ceremonial sites aligned with planets, stars, and the sun. Their calendars tracked cycles of the moon, Venus, and other planets with remarkable accuracy, guiding agricultural planning, ritual events, and civic organization. Maya astronomers combined mathematics, observation, and symbolic representation to create an integrated system of knowledge. The movement of the heavens was understood not as a distant abstraction, but as a framework for living, a rhythm to which all aspects of human life were attuned. Across continents, similar patterns emerge. In the British Isles, stone circles and megalithic monuments mark solstices, equinoxes, and lunar cycles. In China, ancient texts and tombs reveal precise calculations of solar and lunar cycles, eclipses, and planetary motion. Even in remote areas, Indigenous cultures tracked the positions of stars, the phases of the moon, and seasonal changes to guide hunting, planting, and ceremonial life. Celestial knowledge was thus universal, practical, and deeply embedded in cultural, spiritual, and technological practice. The study of celestial motion required mathematics, measurement, and patience. Observers mapped the sky with simple tools, using shadows, gnomons, and sight lines to record angles, durations, and alignments. They understood the regularity and predictability of cycles, recognizing patterns in the apparent movement of the sun, moon, and planets. This empirical foundation allowed for predictions of eclipses, solstices, and planetary conjunctions, demonstrating that the ancients were capable of precise and sophisticated calculations long before the development of modern instruments. Astronomical knowledge also carried spiritual significance. Stars, planets, and constellations were often associated with deities, myths, and moral frameworks. Observing the heavens became an act of meditation, reflection, and connection, linking the human experience to the vastness of the cosmos. The night sky was a mirror, revealing cycles of birth, growth, decay, and renewal that echoed both in the natural world and in the human psyche. Ritual, astronomy, and symbolism were intertwined, forming a multidimensional science that was at once practical, philosophical, and spiritual. Even phenomena that appear purely observational were often encoded in symbolic systems. Constellations, star alignments, and planetary paths were represented in art, architecture, and storytelling. In Egypt, celestial cycles influenced the design of pyramids and temples. In Mesoamerica, glyphs and carvings preserved observations of planetary motion. Through these symbols, knowledge could be transmitted across generations, even in the absence of formal scientific documentation. Observation became memory, and memory became a bridge between the known and the unknown. Navigation also relied on celestial understanding. Mariners across the Indian Ocean, Mediterranean, and Pacific used stars, moon, and horizon markers to traverse vast distances. Celestial observation was practical, providing guidance, safety, and confidence. Yet even in this practicality, there was elegance. Each voyage was an interplay between calculation and intuition, observation and experience. Knowledge of the heavens became a tool for both survival and exploration, expanding human presence and connecting distant worlds. The precision of ancient astronomical observation is striking. Eclipse cycles, solstices, lunar phases, and planetary conjunctions were recorded with remarkable accuracy. This required systematic observation over decades, meticulous recording, and the ability to recognize and anticipate complex patterns. Celestial knowledge was empirical, cumulative, and rigorous, often validated through long-term observation rather than abstract theory alone. It represents a bridge between sensory perception, mathematical reasoning, and philosophical interpretation, a quiet mastery of pattern recognition that resonates across time. Ancient astronomers also explored the relationship between the celestial and the terrestrial. Celestial alignments informed architecture, city planning, and agriculture, linking human activity with cosmic rhythms. Temples, pyramids, and monuments often incorporated sight lines and alignments to track the sun, moon, and stars. This integration reflects a worldview in which human knowledge, natural cycles, and celestial motion were inseparable. The sky was a living library, a guide for action, reflection, and understanding. In contemplating the celestial sciences of ancient peoples, we are invited to slow our gaze, to observe, and to reflect. The sky becomes a mirror of human curiosity, ingenuity, and patience. Each alignment, observation, and calculation carries echoes of minds attuned to rhythm, pattern, and harmony. Astronomy was not merely an abstract pursuit. It was a way of life, a meditation on the regularities and mysteries of existence. By tracing these insights, we connect with civilizations that looked upward, wondered, and sought to align themselves with the universe in both practical and spiritual ways. The study of ancient celestial knowledge reminds us that the universe has always been a teacher. Observation, calculation, and reflection allowed civilizations to navigate, construct, ritualize, and understand their world in ways that were both pragmatic and deeply poetic. Their insights endure in monuments, glyphs, texts, and aligned landscapes, waiting for the attentive observer to perceive the quiet intelligence embedded in the heavens. Stars, cycles, and celestial events are more than phenomena. They are invitations to curiosity, contemplation, and connection. As night deepens and thought softens, we drift with the ancients across the constellations, tracking the slow arcs of the moon, the predictable rhythms of planets, and the fleeting brilliance of shooting stars. The sky becomes a canvas of patterns, cycles, and stories, echoing the meticulous observation, reflection, and imagination of civilizations long past. In their study of the heavens, they teach us patience, precision, and wonder, revealing a science that is both empirical and meditative, mathematical and poetic. And as our minds follow these quiet movements, we sense a connection between stone and star, mind and cosmos, observation and imagination. Ancient astronomy was a bridge linking human experience to the vastness of the universe, the rhythm of the natural world, and the mysteries of time. It was a science of both calculation and contemplation, of practical guidance and spiritual reflection, offering a timeless meditation on the order, beauty, and wonder of existence. Philosophy, in its deepest sense, is the art of thinking about thinking, of seeking understanding beyond the surface of appearances. Among lost civilizations, much of this philosophical knowledge never reached written form, or if it did, it has been buried by time, leaving only traces in ritual, art, and practice. It was a living wisdom, transmitted through observation, ceremony, and daily action, guiding thought, behavior, and perception in subtle, multidimensional ways. Ancient philosophies were inseparable from the natural world, where rivers, stars, mountains, and seasons became teachers and mirrors, offering lessons on balance, harmony, impermanence, and interconnectedness. Human life, social order, and the cosmos were intertwined. Understanding one required observing the other. Philosophical thought was encoded in ritual, gesture, and rhythm. Ceremonies, planting, building, or simple acts of daily life were infused with meaning, reflecting ethical and practical knowledge. Stories, myths, and symbolic art carried layers of insight, connecting human behavior to natural and cosmic patterns. Philosophy was performed, felt, and absorbed, not merely read, and its practical applications were as vital as abstract reasoning. Mental, bodily, and environmental disciplines, through meditation, movement, and reflection, cultivated awareness, ethical understanding, and alignment with natural cycles. Apprenticeship and guided practice embedded knowledge into the mind and community, shaping perception, decision-making, and social cohesion. Lost philosophies also explored consciousness, perception, and reality, offering tools to navigate both external and inner landscapes. They wove science, art, ethics, and ritual into a holistic framework, teaching that thought, action, and observation are inseparable. Even in silence, their lessons endure, hidden in alignment of temples, rhythms of rituals, or traces of cities, reminding us that wisdom is not only written but lived, offering a quiet, timeless dialogue between the minds of the past and our own. As we reach the closing moments of our journey, we pause to reflect on the delicate threads of wisdom that have survived through the ages. Across deserts, mountains, rivers, and oceans, countless civilizations rose and fell, leaving behind monuments, tools, texts, and whispers of knowledge that beckon us to listen quietly. The sciences they practiced, the methods they developed, and the ideas they explored were once vivid and alive, forming the foundation of their understanding of the world. Today, many of these achievements seem almost like echoes, faint traces of human curiosity and ingenuity, scattered like stardust across the centuries. And yet, even in their absence, they inspire a quiet awe, reminding us that the pursuit of knowledge has always been both fragile and enduring. We imagine the scholars and engineers of forgotten cities, their hands shaping stone, metal, and water with care and precision. Perhaps they charted the skies with instruments that no longer exist, noting the subtle dance of planets and stars in ways that would astound our modern astronomers. Maybe they experimented with natural forces, discovering principles of hydraulics, magnetism, or resonance long before they were formally understood. Their knowledge was a living conversation with the world around them, a dialogue of observation, experimentation, and intuition. Yet time has erased so much of this dialogue, leaving behind a delicate balance of certainty and mystery. What remains are fragments, monuments perfectly aligned to celestial bodies, inscriptions whose meanings slip just out of reach, tools whose full function is still debated by archaeologists today. Even the things that have survived are imbued with mystery. A stone staircase winding up to a temple, perfectly crafted without the machinery we rely on today, suggests methods lost to time. A manuscript, partially destroyed by fire or decay, hints at discoveries we may never fully comprehend. A relic in a museum showcases craftsmanship and knowledge that surpass what we might expect for the era it belongs to. Each of these remnants invites quiet reflection, urging us to imagine the thought processes, the careful experimentation, and the relentless curiosity that brought them into being. They remind us that human ingenuity is timeless and universal, flowing in currents that connect past and present. There is a particular beauty in the unknown. As we trace these forgotten sciences, we realize that their mysteries are not failures of understanding, but rather invitations to wonder. They teach us humility, showing how much can be achieved with ingenuity and observation, even without the modern tools we take for granted. And yet, they also challenge us, leaving questions unresolved, gaps unfilled, and possibilities unexplored. In this space between knowing and not knowing, the mind can wander freely, contemplating the endless horizon of human potential. The civilizations that came before us, though silent, continue to communicate through these vestiges, offering guidance, inspiration, and a subtle reminder that knowledge is both ephemeral and eternal. As night falls and shadows lengthen across ancient ruins, we imagine the world as it might have been, bustling with scholars, engineers, and visionaries who saw patterns in the sky, understood the flow of water, and grasped the subtleties of material and sound. We can almost hear the quiet murmurs of discovery, the careful notes taken on clay tablets or scrolls, and the gentle hum of experiments conducted in stone chambers. Even without complete records, the ingenuity of these civilizations radiates through the ages. Their wisdom continues to inform, challenge, and inspire us, not only in practical ways, but also in our imagination, creativity, and appreciation of the mysteries around us. In contemplating these lost sciences, we also come face to face with our own fleeting existence. What will survive of our current knowledge? How will future generations interpret the traces we leave behind? These reflections, gentle and unhurried, encourage a deeper appreciation for the interplay of human curiosity, discovery, and impermanence. The civilizations we have explored, though largely gone, remind us that the pursuit of understanding is a timeless endeavor, one that connects all of humanity across centuries and continents. Each discovery, each theory, each subtle observation forms part of a vast, intricate tapestry woven over millennia. And within this tapestry, even the smallest threads of knowledge can illuminate paths forward, hinting at possibilities that remain to be uncovered. As our journey draws to a close, we rest in the quiet majesty of what has been achieved and what has been lost. We leave with a sense of calm wonder, carrying with us the gentle knowledge that while civilizations may fade, their curiosity, their ingenuity, and their fascination with the world endure. In the silence of the night, Amid the shadows of ruins and the light of distant stars, we feel the pulse of human intellect across time. It is a rhythm both steady and fragile, reminding us that knowledge, no matter how forgotten or incomplete, continues to inspire and guide those who seek it. And as we close our eyes, drifting into sleep, we carry with us the whispers of these lost sciences, letting them settle softly into the mind, a gentle lullaby of curiosity, discovery, and timeless wonder.